Check one more time, Daria. Yes. Hey, I think we actually made it live. All right, sorry for anybody who's been trying to connect. We had a little bit of a 5-minute snafu on trying to get this connected, and while I was playing around with settings, I just disconnected the webcam. So I apologize. The video quality is not going to be as good as I was hoping, but somebody who's watching, please send me a message that you can hear me. Okay, Baron Collins Hill, thank you for confirming. Daria, you're literally, I can just see you giving me a thumbs up in the other room. Sorry about that again. If you've been waiting and you were online, maybe you were just watching me sitting here staring at a screen and reloading over and over again, but I think we're live now. So yeah, again, apologies for the video quality. We had a better thing set up. However, had to just take it all apart to try to get YouTube to somehow let me connect. I wish you could see on the other side of my computer what my webcam setup looks like. I have the worst webcam ever, and I meant to upgrade in time for this one, but I forgot. It doesn't have a zoom out feature. If you watch that, what was the video that we did where it was just so tight on my face like this throughout the whole interview? So it's sitting across the room on a bag that Daria brought home filled with wine. Okay, so 3-year anniversary OTR live stream. We filmed our next video yesterday. I want to thank all of you for watching. Special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters. Every one of you, I'm keeping an eye out in the comments. Thank you to everybody who supports us on Patreon. You have saved us. This has been a really tough year on YouTube. If anybody follows kind of YouTube related content, there's a lot of, whining and moaning out there it's changed. It's been a hard year, but we've persevered and gotten through it in part because of our Patreon supporters and also obviously because of all of you. Anyway, my name is Adam. Daria's in the other room screening through comments and questions. And so anything you want to talk about, I am here. We've got wine. I've got an NFL game starting in about 3 hours. So I've got some time. We're not planning to go anywhere. And I'm happy to talk to you about anything. If you have anything on your mind about the channel, about food, sports, music, television, politics, whatever's on your mind, we are here to talk. Daria, let me quickly just on my phone get our little thing set up so you can start feeding me questions as I concentrate on wine. Before I take the first question, let me quickly update you on where we are as a channel. We've just filmed our next video yesterday. It is going to be there's a restaurant that just opened in Bangkok. It was a pop-up about 5 years ago before COVID. They just 2 weeks ago opened their first permanent location, and it's owned by 2 of the grandchildren of the deposed princes of Lao. It's a Laotian restaurant, the first one in Bangkok in years. There was a previous one a long time ago, but if you watched our video a very, very long time ago on Le Dalat, the Vietnamese restaurant, we're kind of going down that path again with this next one. It's the family stories of 2 of the princes of Lao who were deposed. There were 3 princes. We talked about this in the Hmong video, but one of them was a monarchist, one of them was a communist, and one of them was neutral. And then when the communists won and took over Lao in 1975, the other 2 and their families had to flee. And it's their direct descendants who have now opened a Lao restaurant in Bangkok. So this is going to be a really fun story. That's the next video. I had a meeting this afternoon with Gagan Anand, who is a name that I'm sure a lot of you know. If you follow food in this city, I just reached out to his team last week and I said, it's crazy that we're in Bangkok and we haven't done a story on the most controversial chef and also a former world #1 restaurant, which is literally just like we could walk there from our house. And so, yeah, the start of the wheels in motion. It'll take some time before that one gets off the ground. But yeah, those are the next ones. And then at the end of the month, me and Daria are going out of town for 4 days, not related to the channel. We're going to go watch the Foo Fighters in Jakarta. That's a long promised getaway that we were going to do. We were hoping that they were going to announce a Bangkok show. We went to Green Day here. There's not much I miss about living in the States, especially now. There's not much I miss about living in the States. Live music and live sports. I do, and family and friends, obviously, but live music is something that's really, we miss it, and so we're going to fly down to Jakarta to watch the Foo Fighters. And then I'm back in Indonesia at the end of October because we got invited to go on a sailboat to the Nutmeg Islands in the Banda Islands, where the Dutch had their nutmeg plantations. And so we're going to go make a video on a sailboat the 1 month a year that the islands where the nutmeg grows are going to be accessible. We can actually get there. The ocean's not choppy. Hey, Jefe Perro, the boss dog. If my high school Spanish still is memorable. Thank you very much. I forget sometimes that this is something that we can do. People are able to support us. Thank you. It means a lot. Anybody who gives us some money, I will shout you. But that's not why we're here. So thank you just for watching. Hefe, I appreciate it. I'm going to start going through the questions, and I'll go back to the beginning. Daria is feeding them to me in order so I don't miss anybody if possible. But I just see right underneath that, since we're on the topic of music, Tyler, the Creator, is coming in 2 days. Are we planning to go there? No. I have a lot of... Daria is saying from the other room she loves Tyler, the Creator. If Tyler, the Creator, walked into this room right now, I don't think I would just say, hello, sir, how are you? Why are you in my house? I don't think I would recognize him. As my boss used to say, couldn't pick him out of a one-man lineup. I'm sure he's great. My music knowledge comes to a hard stop the day I left the United States and moved to Asia. 15 years in restaurant kitchens followed by just doing this has pretty much cut me off from civilization. Unless it was on a playlist that I might have put together for a bar or a restaurant, my music ends in 2009. And realistically, it ends in about 1998 because that's when not only is that when my musical taste peaked, that's also when music peaked. I don't even believe that. The late 1990s were actually not a great time for music. But no, not going to see Tyler, the Creator. We're flying to Jakarta to watch a Foo Fighters concert. I can't just throw around money on everything. Smashing Pumpkins is one we're debating when they come here. Let me start going through my camera. David says your camera is dirty. Yes, I know. This is why I tried to have a webcam set up. And then we were 5 minutes late. The internet wasn't working. YouTube was down. I just unplugged everything and saw if I could just reset. And so, yes, this is my internal camera. It's terrible. Internal microphone is terrible, but I'm here. So thank you for your patience. Okay, first question. Betabug64, what ingredient history video are you going to do next? Great question. And I don't know. There's a lot that are really interesting. I personally have just really wanted to do beer for a long time. And the main reason why is because when I was in China, I got really close with very close, not just in a work standpoint. We were very close friends with a gentleman who was the pioneer of brewing in China. He was the man who brought craft brewing to China. He's a Chinese guy who goes by Master Gao. Went to the University of Puerto Rico and then ended up in Providence, Rhode Island in the 1970s, where he got into beer and then moved back to China and wrote a book in about 2000, I think, called Get Your Own Beer. And it was the first Chinese language guide to brewing. Way off topic, long story short, he spent years trying, as a TV program that he hosted, trying to recreate the world's first beers, the first beers that were ever discovered, how they were brewed. He literally went to the caves where they were found, sourced the exact, the honey from the local bees to seal to find the wax to seal the casks and all this stuff. Did it really by the book. And Master Gao, while I still have contact with him, he's probably in his late 60s by now. I want to do that story so that I can bring Gao on, and I'll have my webcam cleaned up by then because it'll most likely be a Zoom interview. But the beer one is really exciting to me. That's probably the next one, but it's subject to change. I go down these rabbit holes. I wouldn't have expected we would have done the tea video But then the breakfast one sort of sent me down that tea rabbit hole. It was interesting. I did a bunch of research and had all these notes. And so there you go. Adam Kuff, K-U-F. What does OTR stand for? So when we started the channel, and I apologize if somebody who's watching has heard this before, but when we started the channel, it was not supposed to be me. I didn't anticipate that it was going to be just me on camera. I wanted to write and I wanted to tell stories. And I had this vision of like just getting a bunch of people together who all sort of wanted to make videos about different things that we all knew about. In the end, I couldn't find anybody else and it was just me. So that's why it's not called the Adam Gottschalk channel or whatever, using my name, which I'm glad we didn't anyway, but because who am I? But the name OTR, when I had my list of potential names, I'm terrible at naming things. All of my restaurants and bars had awful names. The last place I opened was called, last two places I opened were called Keg Room, because when we rented the building for the first location, it had a room full of kegs, and there's the name. OTR, on my list of names for the channel, the theoretical channel, were On the Road, Off the Rails, and On the Record. And I couldn't decide between those or any other options. And I thought, those are three names that all have the same abbreviation. If we just say OTR, then we don't need to choose. And actually, it's funny, and we talked about this in the previous live stream, but to show how much of a mess we were in the beginning and how little we kind of understood what we were doing, I registered our YouTube domain as www.youtube.com/OTR on the road. Daria, at the same time, probably the same day, registered our Instagram as OTR.offtherails. So we didn't even have that conversation where we understood exactly what OTR stood for. So to this day, on YouTube, we're OTR on the road. On Instagram, we're OTR off the rails. Dr. Carpet, Dr. Carpet, Doctor. Favorite team? We were talking about American football. So if that's the question, Buffalo Bills. Most of you probably don't care. For those that do, I'm not from Buffalo. I have no reason to be a Bills fan. My parents were not football fans. And when I was a kid, my neighbor had family from Buffalo. And so I would go over to his house and we'd play Tom Landry Football 1988 on the computer. You could call two plays, pass and run. You could move left or right. They didn't have the actual legal licenses to use the real players' names, so everybody was like slightly misspelled. But we would always be the Bills because that was his favorite team. And then when I found football on my own, I knew all the Bills players, slightly misspelled. Then they lost 4 consecutive Super Bowls. And when you have suffered that kind of trauma before the age of 13, you're stuck for life. So I'm a Bills fan. Make You Famous Hong Kong. Congratulations. My favorite food channel on YouTube. Oh, thank you. I didn't read this first. Congratulations, my favorite. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Any plans to film in Singapore? Yes. When we started the channel, I don't know, Anand, if you're online, shoot me a quick hello. Most likely you have better things to do with, I was just speaking to him and I think he's on holiday right now. So Anand, I hope at this moment, as you're traveling with your family, you have better things to do. But Anand was our first backer when we started the channel. Good friend of mine, you saw him in one of our early videos. We'll call him an OTR producer. He really helped us kind of get this started. Anand is now living in Singapore and has been working on me to plan a trip where we have a place to stay and he could host us and doing some scouting for us. Singapore has a lot of stories to tell. I would love to do Singapore. The big holdup on Singapore for filming is we're still, we're a new enough channel. As much as I appreciate all of your help and support and viewership and Patreon support, it's expensive. It's, these are, as we're growing, Singapore's not a cheap place to bring a big crew and spend a few days, so I'll have to kind of think that through when we're going to be able to work it in. But I would say within the next 6 months to a year, 100% sure we'll be in Singapore, no question. And there's a lot of reasons too. There's also, on the Singapore topic, I'm going to say one more thing. I wanted to do speaking of people who are probably not watching right now, Gary Butler, the Roman cook, who's about to have, technically his wife is about to have child number 2, like imminently. It might be going on as we speak. Gary, you should still be streaming this, even in the hospital. This is very important. Gary just did a video recently, which is like, I actually wanted to do a video with Gary as our next one, but because of his personal circumstances, congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Roaming Cook. The timing didn't work out, but I wanted to follow up because Gary did something that has been in my mind for a while about Bangkok kind of moving to a Singapore style hawker center model. There's a new hawker center, literally like a Singapore style hawker center for street food that's being built across from Lumpini Park here in Bangkok. Gary did a video where he was kind of outed Talab Plu, one of our favorite markets, which is now kind of also moving into a Singapore style hawker center model. And it's pretty much inevitable that that's where the city's going. You know, I think Gary said in his video that in 5 years, most likely Bangkok is going to be looking like Singapore from a street food perspective. I wanted to do a show with Gary where we kind of went into that, but like, that's a topic that I really want to get into. You know, on my street where I live, you know, it's hard even walking the dogs in the morning sometimes because there are street food vendors that block the sidewalk and you can't get around them without walking into traffic. And I'm Mr. Street Food. We are like, I'm Adam from OTR. We are very pro street food, but there's also, it's not as cut and dry as it seems about wanting to preserve things the way that they are. And, you know, it's a complicated topic that I want to get into. And that's another reason I want to shoot in Singapore is I haven't been to Singapore myself since probably 2017, you know, and I want to go back again and just kind of really wrap my head around what is, you know, the pros and cons of cleaning up the streets and putting everything into hawker centers. And I was not a fan when I was living in a place like Beijing, which was not very street food heavy. You know, I missed that kind of wildness of what Bangkok is. But now living in Bangkok and seeing sort of the pros and cons of it, I want to go back and just see how I feel about hawker centers. Give me 1 second. All right. Next question. Daria, feel free to just give me a wave or a yell if there's anything that needs to be bumped up that somebody's following up. So
just slow down on your wine.
Slow down on my... we only have one bottle of wine. Are you worried I'm going to finish this before you get a chance to have yours? Yeah, we didn't think this through. So let's see. Any chance you guys come back to China? Ooh, that is a personally complicated question. I don't know, to be honest. I would love to. I was watching a video today. I found some new young channel that I just was binge watching this morning that was doing stories on street food in Northeast China. And it made me homesick. And obviously we were just watching this like, of course, I would love to film in China. It's also not a time or a current government administration that, number one, I want to promote. I don't want to encourage tourism to a place that I don't believe is right now friendly to outsiders, in spite of how much they want the money, having been through what we've been through. And I also, when it comes to China, don't feel comfortable at this moment in time walking around as a foreigner, even though I speak Chinese. With a camera crew. That's something that, you know, you walk into a restaurant in Thailand or Vietnam or Indonesia, you know, people are really welcoming. And in China, the restaurant owners themselves are, like, China depends on social media for restaurants. It's just so important, you know, for China. But you know, so restaurants themselves are going to love the publicity. I don't know how safe I would personally feel guaranteeing that Dennis and Carol would be absolutely fine and not in any trouble walking around with, you know, our camera gear and shooting in a country where, as a foreigner right now, that is viewed with suspicion. There will be a time, hopefully, when that's no longer the case. I would love to get back to Beijing and shoot. Yeah, I mean, again, if it wasn't for my time in China, you know, OTR wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be in the food universe. Like, there's a ton of stories that I really want to tell, and there's an amazing food culture that I'd love to be able to get on tape. But the question of any chance we're going to come back to China to film, it's complicated right now. I don't know. I don't know. All right. So James Blackwell, because I'm in North Carolina / Virginia, have you thought about a smoking episode? When I glanced at that on the messages Daria is sending me. So Daria is screening questions, not to like screen them out, but because the first time this is our third live stream. The first time we did it, they were just coming in so fast. I kept missing some. And And so I'm just trying to make sure that I don't miss anybody. So that's why Daria is just sending them to me one by one. When she first sent this to me, but a smoking episode, like we should have done that in Indonesia, but smoked meats, not cigarette smoking. I'm a month without a cigarette, by the way, right now. So mazel tov. The smoked meats episode, of course, and bring on the controversy. Like, you could argue about where should I film that? Should I do it in North Carolina or in Kansas or in Texas or in Oklahoma, South Carolina? I'm from Virginia with family from North Carolina, so I'm very partial to that part of the country. There's in Charlottesville, where my hometown, is a chef who used to be one of our real like fine dining top guys. And he was a pretty famous guy in the food world in the, what do you call it? Not the Middle East, the Mid-Atlantic. And he just gave it all up about, it feels a couple of years ago. I was still there. So this would have been maybe 2005 or 6. But he gave up his fine dining, big profitable restaurant, and just decided all I want to do is I want to make barbecue. I want to just buy a whole hog every morning, and that's what I'm going to do. And to me, that's so primal, and it's amazing barbecue. But like, there are stories like this across the Mid-Atlantic. Barbecue is a real part of the culture. Yes, to answer your question, and I'd love to film in the States. I got contacted last year by a big publisher, who has pitched the idea of us doing a book. And it's kind of on the back burner right now because I don't have a moment to breathe because of our production. But my proposal to them, I think that the first idea and what we'll end up having to do one day is just to be the history of food. Just take what we do and put it in book form, which will be a huge project, but a lot of fun. But the idea that I had is I want to rediscover my country. I'm so disconnected from America. I feel like such a foreigner going back to the States, but it's for all of our faults. And right now our faults are very much on display. The US is an amazing road trip country. And I used to be, when I was a football broadcaster, just driving from town to town all across the country, and like, you pull off the highway in some random town, there's a local specialty, the diner has its own culture and people who are incredibly warm and friendly and welcoming. And I want to rediscover America through food. That's a book that I'm proposing. I don't know how I would do that as an OTR episode, but as a little side note, one day that's a thought. I hope that answers your question. Shoelace Express, have you thought about doing mini series for the history of whatever videos where you're able to dive deeper across 2, 3, or even 4 hour-long episodes? Here's the problem. On YouTube, somebody asked me this the last time we did a live stream, or some variation of this question. The problem is, this is still, I have to make a living from YouTube. I need people to watch our videos, and these history ofs are kind of, they do well enough that they let me lose money on the ones that we really want to make, and so the problem is, when you start doing 2, 3, 4 parters, in the YouTube algorithm, do you ever click on a part 2 unless you've watched a part 1? Like, you don't, and it probably won't even get recommended to you. And you see channels that do a part 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's just this law of diminishing returns where, let's say you get 1 million views on part 1, part 2, you're half of that, part 3, you're half of that. And by the end, you're just, the algorithm for YouTube isn't really trained well to sort of push that, or maybe it's just incorrect. It's just the wrong way to do it. So I would love to do some things where we could explore over what I thought, instead of doing a part 2, 3, or 4, is for us, Dennis and Carol do such an amazing job now at the back end, on the videography end of the channel, that having that backbone, having that sort of, the quality of cinematography that we have now, I thought if we have a story that really is just beyond the scope of YouTube, maybe we could start looking at doing something where every year we have 1 or 2 videos that we're just constantly working on in the background, and then we do it almost as like a festival length. Like, we release something that's, a 2-hour-long video on some big topic that we just don't have enough space for we don't have enough, it's just too big for the YouTube format. But yeah, no, to me, the challenge of the history of videos isn't that I wish I could make them longer. It's that a story doesn't always, I've told this story here plenty of times before, but when we finish production on a video, Daria is the last person to watch it. She's the only person other than me, Dennis, and Carol who've seen it before it goes on the air. And after we finish our edit day, when we finish our edit day process, like the last step in making the video before the final edits, so our edit day is me and Dennis / Carol, whoever's in the captain's chair on that video, sitting together and just going through every shot one by one, every frame, and just getting it to what we think is as good as we're capable of making it. And then after the script has been finalized and we've done all of our rough drafts, and then we'll do that last step, and then I'll show it to Daria. And that's where she'll come in with our last notes, which is, what she'll usually say is, that was too much. That I just got lost in this section. It was just beating me with too much information. It's just too much. And like, ultimately, this isn't a book. You don't have the option to bookmark something or go back and reread a sentence over and over again. In a video format, the longer and more intensive we make a video, sometimes the harder it can be to follow. I'd rather try and limit myself and keep the information streamlined and interesting rather than overdoing it. Anyway, yeah, I hope that answers that question. Motasin, 3-part question. That sounds like a good excuse for me to quickly take a little sip of wine. Why did you choose to move to Thailand among all the options? Why didn't you stay in China? And do you plan to stay in Thailand indefinitely or move somewhere else later? So 3-part question. Why did we choose to move to Thailand among all the other countries? I'll actually reverse these. I'm going to answer your second question first. The second question was, why didn't we stay in China? We got kicked out. China became a very difficult country for foreigners during COVID. It was moving that way before COVID. There was a few stretches where it got pretty intense. When the Chinese economy would struggle, there would be a lot of waves of anti-foreigner rhetoric that made it very difficult. But then during COVID, it logistically became hard to renew visas. And so I had 4 restaurants. We didn't have any plans of leaving China. Daria was in charge of a major brewery. We both were very, that was home, and then one day it was time for a visa renewal, and Daria got rejected for no reason other than, you're Russian. We have enough. Time for you to go. 11 years or 12 years is enough. Time to go. And so I could have stayed, but I'm not going to. So then we have to leave. It was supposed to be that day. They were going to just tell her to leave that same day after a dozen years. And I had enough connections in Shenzhen that we were able to get her 2 weeks or 10 days to get everything together. So that gave us 10 days to figure out where are we going to go. We've been here for our entire adult lives. Where are we going to go? And in the middle of a pandemic, the only country that would take an American, a Russian, and 2 dogs on no notice was Thailand. So we moved to Thailand. So that's why we're here. We're here because they would take us. We had no plans of being here. I hated Bangkok as a tourist. And this is actually one of the inspirations for starting OTR was I was wrong about this city. We fell in love with it immediately. As soon as we moved here, living here and traveling here are 2 very different experiences. And I kind of hatched the idea of doing something video content related in part because I just wanted to sort of help other people to experience what we'd felt in the city. And then obviously the scope of the channel grew, but that was why we came to Thailand, because they would let us come here. They allowed us in. And are we planning to stay here indefinitely or move somewhere else later? I will constantly say we're going to move somewhere else. For the sake of the channel, it would be great to have a different home base for a while. I like the feeling of just going somewhere new and starting from scratch, and you get that dealt a new hand of cards, and where am I? Who do I know? What am I going to do? I was a sportscaster in the States. Moved to China and I'm a cook. Moved to Bangkok and now we have this channel, and it's kind of fun to reshuffle that deck and try again. And we have this there's places that I would love to be in Africa. Like Africa is what I really want to kind of make a base for a while, just to understand, this completely different culture that I know nothing about. the Indian subcontinent, whether India, Sri Lanka, we adore Sri Lanka, Bangladesh is the question came from. This is a part of the world I'd like to know more about. Realistically, we are very comfortable in Thailand. Life is good here. Our dogs are in a great, very dog friendly place. We're really happy here. We have a great place to live. It's a perfect home base for the channel, as we hear constantly when we do these history of videos. We could not do this almost anywhere else. Having this range of international diversity to choose from is irreplaceable, unless we're in Queens, right? There's very few places on earth where we can do what we do other than Bangkok. Short version of the answer is we are not planning to stay here indefinitely. Longer version of the answer is, but we might stay here indefinitely. It's home, and we're happy that this is home. Mikey Griff says, love the show. I'm curious about your skills in other languages in addition to Chinese and English. I am I have a terrible, I learned Chinese quickly because I was thrown into the fire. My first job in China was running a kitchen, and nobody else spoke a word of English. And so the first thing I learned how to say in Chinese, I think, was how to properly dice an onion, or how to pick the right texture of a tomato, before I could say hello properly. You what? Hey, Anand, I was just talking about you. You scroll back in the chat. This is the Anand who's now logged in. We were just getting asked if we were going to film in Singapore, and I mentioned you were there, and that was a big reason why we were thinking about coming down. So here you are. Thanks for joining the chat. So I was a terrible language student. That's just I took 7 years of Spanish because I thought I was going to be a Major League Baseball player and wanted to be able to communicate. And I barely speak a word of Spanish. My father's first language was French. He was from Brussels, Belgium. My parents both spoke fluent French. They met in France. I should speak French, but I don't. I learned Chinese, as I said, by necessity. My Thai is growing. It's not great, but it's at least I can understand a fair bit when we're interviewing somebody, because I've lived here now for 4 years. Bahasa Indonesia, I used to be better. I was good. Like in China, when I learned how to cook Indonesian food, I learned how to speak kitchen Bahasa. So you put me in a kitchen in Indonesia, and I could probably get by even now. You talk to me about politics, and I'm a 3-year-old. So that's my answer to that question. Hey, Adam, this is from Akarash L. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. Akara SHL. I apologize. Hey, Adam, I noticed some of your new videos, particularly the Indonesia ones, had a few title changes during the debut. Can you comment on that? Must be disheartening to not get reception you're hoping for. Kind of. I changed it. So, by now, we have enough experience. We've done more than 100 videos now, and our viewing base is big enough that there are some patterns. I'm not a lot of people who have YouTube channels obsess over analytics, but to me, until you're a big enough channel, it's just statistical noise. You can't really get anything from diving into statistics if there's just not enough numbers. We're at that point now where we're big enough that we can start to kind of learn what to expect, and to get some expectations for what's going to happen when we upload a video. If we do something like the Lake Toba, for example, we did that Lake Toba video. That is so far off the beaten path from anything that we've ever done before. I don't know what to expect. So I can't really judge from what the response is. If we put up the history of, tea, the history of sugar, or what is Indonesian food, these are the kinds of things that we've done enough that are similar to that before that I generally have an idea of what to expect. And if it's not performing, then I assume it's my fault. If we put the video online and I can see 10 minutes in, YouTube's algorithm, we call it inside baseball on this, but if anybody has a YouTube channel, you've noticed, and I talked about this already, it's changed a lot since the beginning of this year. YouTube has dramatically changed the algorithm. It used to value subscriptions. You notice when you're watching a video now, when you log on go to your homepage, if you haven't picked up on this yet, and notice how many channels you subscribe to that you don't see on your homepage anymore. You know, it used to be that when you subscribe to a channel, you would get recommended their videos when they released a new video. That's not the case anymore. It's all AI now, kind of choosing what the algorithm says you're going to want to watch. The way that impacts us is really, can't say it's negative. It is negative, but like I'm okay with YouTube doing this. We'll go with it. You know, I'm sure it's a net benefit for people seeing more diverse content creators, you know, which is good. It exposes new channels. But the downside for us is that it used to be that we would put up, we're making hour-long content. You can't always drop everything and watch a video the minute we put it online, you know, especially because our viewers are scattered all over the world and it may not be the right time zone. So we used to put a video online and then, you know, within the first 12 hours, we would start to see it grow to where it was going to be. Now, the algorithm, the way that it works is all that matters is the first 5 minutes. You know, the first 5 minutes when you post a video, it's going to get recommended to your subscribers. And if your subscribers are clicking on it, then awesome, the video takes off. If they don't, just immediately, then it doesn't get recommended to your other subscribers. And you may be an OTR subscriber. You may not even see it that we've released a video. You might not even know. And then slowly it will build back up again over time, you know, hopefully. But like in those first 5 minutes, which if we perform decently, that first hour is very touch and go right now for you need good performance right off the bat or a video is going to struggle. And so to answer your question about changing the titles and thumbnails on videos, I don't really care about it too much after. If I find something that I'm comfortable with it, after an hour, I'm going to let it ride. You know, maybe a day later, I'll try something different. But that first hour is really important. And I'm going to try, you know, you can see that because it's getting recommended still to your subscribers. So I know what to expect. I might literally just do 5-minute tests of a different title just to see if we can see any data on it. But yeah, that's the answer is I'm experimenting with it in the first hour. I usually start thinking that it's going to be correct, but if it doesn't perform well enough, then yes, so be it. Anyway, hope that answers your question. Hunters 11, do you have any plan to extend to YouTube Shorts, at least some promotional shorts for your videos? Food content does thrive there. It would be, we could be at 1 million subscribers if we did shorts. It is great for subscribers. The downside is what I just said about the first 5 minutes matters because YouTube evaluates, you know, the algorithm is not smart enough. AI is not smart enough yet to watch an OTR video and be like, that's a well-made video. We're going to recommend it. So instead, how does it evaluate a video? It evaluates a video by who clicks on it and how long they watch it for, you know, which is reasonable. And so when we post a video, we need you to click on it. That's it. We need you to watch the video. The problem is, and it's subscribers. That's who they tested out on. The problem and what kills channels, and you see a lot of this online. You look this up, or you go to those Reddit forums, and you know, and there's a lot of people complaining about this. And this is my fear about doing shorts: is that let's say we get a whole bunch of new subscribers. Those subscribers are subscribing because of our shorts. I upload a 1-hour video. That's not usually for those people what they want to watch. And what that means is that those first 5 minutes when I upload a new video, a lot fewer subscribers are going to click on it because a big percentage of my subscribers are now only watching shorts. You look at these channels, I'm not going to call them out by name, but you look at these channels that are thriving doing YouTube shorts. A lot of their long form content is really suffering, you know, and I think that that's something that I'm afraid of. I don't care about anything other than our bread and butter. You know, all I care about is the videos that we're making. That's what I'm spending 100 hours a week working on at a minimum. That's what we're pouring our heart and soul into. That's what I'm proudest of, you know, and just getting some, I can't say cheap clicks because shorts count. I watch shorts, you know, it's entertainment, but like, I'm afraid of doing anything that's going to potentially hurt our ability to survive making long form content. And I believe that shorts would negatively impact our viability as a long form channel. That's my answer for why I'm not interested in doing shorts at this moment. Ooh, this is a fun question that calls for a sip of wine. Clint and Summer says, what video or videos would you recommend to introduce someone to your channel? That's a really good question. Our content is all over. Here's the problem. I feel like we keep getting better. I have a hard time sometimes going back and rewatching old videos because I just noticed these things that I have since learned to. And I'm sure right now the content we're making in a year, I'm going to look back on and be like, I can't watch that. But so realistically, I'm only thinking through the last maybe 6 months, maximum to a year. Let me just quickly open up the channel page in the background here. Somebody's never watched OTR before. They want to see the channel and they want a good introduction to who we are and what we do. You know, we have a few different sort of categories of videos. There's you know, the history of bread and the Bourdain video are completely different. You know, we do single dishes like the you know, the tom yum was a fun one. The mugrob, the crispy pork one, pho, these were great. To me, basic, what is Lao food is a really good kind of straightforward, this is OTR, this is what we do. I'm really proud. In the last year, I think the one we did on Bourdain and the one we did on the Hmong are probably my favorites that we've done in the last year. You go back a little bit further, the one on Kim, the Michelin chef from Hanoi who was a shoe shine boy on the streets. That's one that I think is an all-timer for us. But then you can just look at like this, the Lam Chabang port one. That to me is just quintessential OTR. That's just us having fun, you know, and telling a story about something that we think is interesting. I don't know. I feel like you just click on one of our videos and you have a pretty good sense of who we are. The complicated thing is that these history ofs, the history of bread, the history of rice, the history of sugar and tea, and these are formatically very different from the rest of them. These are videos where I'm sitting here, literally here in front of this wall, talking to the camera, and you know, they're framed differently, they're written differently. People really like them, but I think those are less representative maybe of who we are, even though they have the most views. You know, the ones that I'm proudest of are the ones where we're telling a story. My favorite ones are the ones I'm barely in, you know, and yeah, so I think that hopefully is some kind of an answer to that. I'm sorry that I don't have a more specific, you need to watch this video, but I'm proud of all the ones that we've done. We haven't put it online if I'm not proud of it. We've worked ridiculously hard on every single video that we've ever posted, with the exception of those 3 that I intensely regret that we did in Christmas 2022 of, hey, top 10. What was our top? What do we do? Top 10. Here's my top 10 Thai foods that surprised me. Like those, forget those 3, but other than those, every video we've ever done is something that I'm incredibly proud of. We poured our heart and soul in. We did the best we possibly could at executing it, you know, because of our own competitiveness and because we feel like we owe that to the people who we are taping. So next question, let's see. Do you have, this is from Dada61, do you have German ancestors, as your last name seems to be German? It is Gottschalk. It is, I believe, a Bavarian name. There is a German late night television show presenter, Thomas Gottschalk. Every time I meet a German, they think that my name is hilarious because of him. You can Google the guy. He had this like big, long blonde hair, and apparently he's quite a character. He was living in Los Angeles for a long time. I don't know much about him, but he's also a Gottschalk. My family, so my dad was born in Belgium. His family came from France. Before that, at some point, there was a German, the name Gottschalk is German, but I don't have any connections personally to any part of my family that would still be in Germany now, that's for sure. I don't know how many generations it's been since we were in Germany. But yeah, Gottschalk, I think, is Bavarian. Who want to know, question mark. Do you have, that's the name of the person who asked the question. This is not just me talking. Who want to know says, do you have any plan to expand the deep dives into more cultures and cuisines? I love the historical evaluation of different foods and cuisines. Yes. Yes, that's all we care about doing. And yes, so I kind of look at like our first year when we were just learning who we were. First year doesn't count. we were just kind of learning who are we? What are we doing? How do we make videos? Second year at finding our own voice. And second year, we kind of started expanding. Second year was the Thailand year. Our second year was the year where we really kind of got deep into Thailand. This year, we expanded much deeper into Southeast Asia. Year 3, we did Vietnam, we did Laos, Indonesia, Malaysia's coming up soon. Hong Kong is coming up soon. Singapore, as we talked about. But like next year, I want to go a little bit beyond that. India is a big plan for next year. I want to kind of push towards the subcontinent. There's so much so many stories in that part of the world. So yeah, that's next year's focus is going to broaden a little bit. There's still a lot more we have to do in Southeast Asia, and we're not getting away from Thailand. This is still home. But yeah, so this was kind of the year of us pushing into beyond Thailand into Southeast Asia. Next year, hopefully, is pushing beyond Southeast Asia into broader Asia, both directions. Taiwan is a big plan for a lot of reasons. India, and then yeah, the year after, my hope is Africa. As I told you, that's my dream, is to really spend time. Mohammed Ishmael, this is a great question. Is it worth starting YouTube without any gear, but just a good mic, iPhone, and a MacBook? And then there's a follow-up, but I'm going to start with that. Absolutely. Like, it's insane how good the quality is on a phone. Daria, we just watched a movie that was entirely shot 28 years later. Yeah, Danny Boyle, yeah? Is literally just he filmed that entire movie on iPhones. And that's a Hollywood production. And I think Dennis, are you online? I don't think Dennis is watching us right now. It's 9:00. He's probably asleep already. But Dennis, I think when we need supplemental footage, because we have 2 cameras that we're using. We use Sony cameras for our shoots, along with drones and everything. But sometimes we need a third camera, and we'll use the phone. And Dennis has a Blackmagic app. Blackmagic is a camera company. I think it's Australian, but I could be wrong. But Blackmagic app is a great filter to use for cinematic quality video using an iPhone. I've told this when I did Reddit Ask Me Anythings before. I have said this. I will say this again. Video quality is not as important as audio quality. If you click on a video and it looks amateur, but the sound is crystal clear, you're going to be patient with it. You're not even going to notice. Footage looks like whatever. But if you watch something that looks great, but the sound is fuzzy, or the sound is like you're talking like I am right now, because I had to unplug everything without a microphone and it sounds a little hollow, don't do that. Invest in audio. Audio is so much more important than video for just giving people this sort of, deep down kind of feeling that they're watching something that's a professional production. Audio is very important. What cameras would you recommend for vlogging in real life filming? I'm looking to record YouTube videos in Bangkok about public transportation in Bangkok. Competitor. I'm not going to answer that question. I'm kidding. What cameras? So I'm not Mr. Technology. Again, Dennis, it's personal preference. Dennis is my 3rd full-time director since we started the channel. Carol's joined after Dennis, but Carol and Dennis both prefer using Sony cameras. I think the picture quality of Sony is generally, I'm thrilled with how it looks. I think it looks incredible. Boris used a Panasonic Lumix, and Jasper used a Blackmagic, and they all look different, but they all look fine, and so yeah, this looks fine too. Use a phone, doesn't matter. I think writing and editing is a lot more important than making something that looks cinematic. Chris from Chinese Cooking Demystified said something very smart to me once when I started the channel, and I really wanted it to look incredible. And Chris said, if you make it look too nice, people will hold you to a higher standard, and I, at the time, was nowhere near ready to be held to a higher standard. So as he said, he's like, don't be afraid to make it look amateur. Viewers are totally cool with you being a real person. But if you try to make it look like it's an HBO production or Netflix production, and then you come up short, then that actually is going to end up hurting more than it helps. Daria, can I ask you to turn the air conditioning colder? I'm boiling in here. Just turn it colder for me. Thank you. So, if I'm not going to try and say this, I assume it's just a collection of letters, UEJDNXLS. Since China is a no-go, have you considered Taiwan? I'd love to see a deep dive on Jiaji Pai or on Lu Rofan. Taiwan is priority one for me for a place that we want to film. And I don't mean to sound fatalistic. There's a chance that in the next while, things in Taiwan are going to change. And I'm a big believer that Taiwan is going to be fine. It's going to be fine. But we all follow the news and we know that you know, what's that beeping? Did you hear that? Oh, that's you changing the air conditioning settings. Thank you, Daria. I'm going to need more wine in a moment. Taiwan is a magical place to me. I adore Taiwan. I've been a million times. Daria loves it. I know my way around Taipei pretty well. We have a lot of really good friends who live in Taiwan right now. Again, our job, we have this responsibility, having a channel that has some viewers. Our responsibility is to make a record. We're just here. We're not here to preach about anything. We're here to record life as it is right now. And so that way the record exists. In 50 years, none of the restaurants that we've ever covered will most likely still exist. That's just the truth of the passage of time. And if that's the case, then we have it on tape. It's been covered. These stories have been told. I want Taiwan on tape as it is right now. If the worst happens, you know, a war starts, anything happens, I love Taiwan very much. And I want to make sure that we make a record of what it is. So yeah, Taiwan is absolutely a priority. And it's something that we're going to do hopefully before the end of this year. I just miss it. I love Taiwan. I love the food culture. I love the night markets. You know, I miss speaking Chinese. It's a fun, you know, Taiwan is a very easy, I'm so out of practice. Taiwan is a very easy place to speak Chinese because the accent is extremely clean. So I can just kind of ease right back into it. It's not like going back to Beijing and trying to remember how to talk like a pirate. Do you have any experience? Although that will probably be easy for me too, because that's my home. Wiener Verche says, sorry for pronouncing it incorrectly. Do you have any experience with Austrian cuisine? Experience from a eating or a cooking standpoint? From a cooking standpoint, very, very, very little. Artem Kazantsev, just gonna cut in because anybody who takes the time and says, I'm sorry? Please ask Dasha to take care of you. Artem, thank you very much. Anybody who's I can distract myself from questions. Thank you. It means a lot to me. It really, really does. So thank you. Spasiba. So Austrian cuisine, we like eating it. There's a Swiss Austrian restaurant that me and Daria have found here in Bangkok that we go to a lot. But no, it's a part of the world. I've never been to Austria. My European experience is very limited. If you want to follow this up later and tell me why you ask, if there's a specific dish I should be on the lookout for or a story that you think should be told, please tell me. I'm interested in learning. But the short answer is no, I don't have any experience, especially not from a cooking standpoint. Kimi na Ayutthaya, also from Bangkok here, fabulous city. Love the food culture from street food to fine dining. It's pretty much unbeatable. Do you have plans for a meet and greet with your followers here? So I've done it with our Patreon followers. I've never done an organized meetup, but like sometimes on Patreon, we'll have somebody will shoot me a message and ask if I meet up. I'm happy to do it if it works within our schedule. For a public meet and greet, I had this idea a while ago. Me and Daria went to we went to watch something. What we watched, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, something. There was a party at a place called The Neighborhood that did a big outdoor movie screening on a big, like, it was an outdoor movie kind of amphitheater. And I remember thinking this would be super fun to rent out and do something where me and Dennis and Carol and Daria could all just we could do a screening of a video and then we could just talk about the production process and introduce Dennis to everybody. And, you know, I don't know. I mean, I've thought about doing something like that where we rent a theater or an outdoor space and do a screening and kind of talk through a video, like almost do it like a premiere kind of thing, just with one of our old ones, and bring Dennis on stage, and I'll just kind of talk about how the whole process of making a video, and and then doing that as kind of a public thing, and then we'll hang out obviously afterwards and get a chance to meet everybody who comes. It's ideas I've kicked around, and I would love to do it. I think that would be a lot of fun to do. The only problem for me is, again, I am still generally a one-man team for anything other than production. Daria helps with the Instagram. Dennis and Carol are working 1 million hours a week on making the videos. I'm working 1 million hours a week on making the videos, and I just don't have. We have all these ideas. I'd love to do a meetup, and I'd love to do this kind of thing where we rent out a space like that. But the issue, again, is just somebody has to take the lead on the project, and I just haven't had the time or headspace to do it. But one day, knock on wood, all things go well, we keep growing, and hopefully I can expand our team and put somebody in charge of projects like that. So I appreciate your interest in it. I'll keep you guys updated. I'll send out a community post when we start putting something like that together. But I'd love to do it. I'm thrilled. Every time somebody comes up to us and introduces themselves, it's always really, don't ever hesitate to do it. I mean, if judge the context of it. If I'm riding a motorcycle, don't make me crash. But in general, if you see us in public and you want to introduce yourself, that's great for us. We love it. It's super cool, especially when I run into people at places that we've covered on the channel. That's always fun for me when we're out at, at Bangkok Chow, at what? That's true. We've had people stop us who've watched OTR in Indonesia, in Vietnam. This is wild to me. I've had to dress differently. Now I can't look as rough as I often do going out in public, because now people know who I am, and I have to remind myself to at least put shoes on, Catherine McDonald, thank you and good luck. Keep growing. Thank you so much, Catherine. That is incredibly kind of you. I love that. Let's see if I hit that heart button, what happens here. I'm going to try this. This is all new to me. Okay. Thank you very much, Catherine. And I can give a thumbs up too. I'm learning. Oh man, I can push a heart here and then that all happens. All right, Catherine, thank you. Everybody who supports our channel. It's very difficult for me to express how much we rely on it. You've seen on OTR, we don't sell advertising. I'm so scared. I know that most of you would not care and would be forgiving about it, but everything from when we start a video until when we finish it, I'm trying to take you on a journey. I want you to feel something. We're so careful with every word that we write that if I had to cut in, imagine we're doing these stories on the Hmong, the CIA's secret army. And then I'm cutting in to be hey, by the way, speaking of secret armies, have you, if you're ever being pursued by a secret army, you should try NordVPN to hide your, I just can't, I can't. We're turning down a huge amount of money that would really make our lives a lot easier. But I think the content is the most important, and I believe in what we're doing. And I think that long-term, it's still better for us to just take the financial hit. But that is my way of saying that everybody who supports us on Patreon or in things like this, it actually literally is the only way that we're able to stay making videos. So thank you. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. We would not exist if it wasn't for your direct support. Is it a pope or a pope? Says, is there any topic/ingredient that you really want to do, but haven't had the chance or don't know if it'll fit the rest of the channel? I stopped caring a long time ago whether something's going to fit the channel. We've done videos where I've known going in, no one's going to watch, and I don't care because I want to make that video. It still disheartens me that nobody has watched our Lonely Planet video. It's still to this day, I think it's got 10,000 views or 11,000 views. That is one of the best ones we've ever done. I love that video so much. Nobody watched it. I knew going in it was going to be a hard sell because it's so different from our other content, but I don't care. I think that was an important video. I loved making it. I had a blast doing that story. You can repeat that over and over where the next one, we just did 2 straight videos, the history of sugar and the history of tea, that are very much mass appealing. The next one we're doing on these 2 grandchildren of Laotian princes who were refugees and have now opened a Lao restaurant together. That's a lot more niche. I would probably make more money and the channel would get more viewers if the next video was just the history of corn, but I want to make this story. I want to do it, and it's going to be fun to do, and I think it's important. And again, as I said, our responsibility is making a record. And so yeah, anyway, that's one that I hope answers your question. So I don't care if it's going to fit the rest of the channel, but is there any topic or ingredient that I really want to do but haven't had the chance? I mean, there's a million that I haven't had the chance to do. The ones that I've tried for a long time and have not been able to do, about ingredients, to answer your question, fish cakes and fish sauce are the two that I started working on those stories like 2.5 years ago, and I still don't know. I can't figure out the history. Those are ones that are just so baffling that I just keep like, I would love to do the fish cakes video. That's one that's just obvious to make. Like, it's such a big part of Thai culture, and also so many, other countries in Asia. Yeah, but I can't do a video about history if I don't know the history. And that's one that's just baffled me for a long time. So yeah, I hope that helps to answer your question. More wine. Daria, time for a reload. Thank you. James Blackwell says, have you thought about doing an episode just on fruit in Thailand or perhaps the region? Absolutely. When on my master list of the history of potential videos we might do one day, fruit, I think it'd be fun just to know how, all these, where everything came from, and how things spread. And it's a lot of stories to kind of weave into one. But as far as Thailand is concerned for fruit, yes, to answer your question, that is, we thought about doing it this year. Instead, we ended up just doing the durian video. The durian video, thank you very much, could have easily been just a Thai fruit video, but we've been asked about that before. That's one that comes down to me to having the right guest. I'm not the authority or the expert who I'll still go to this day. I will go to Thai wet markets and I will see, usually, especially if I'm not in Bangkok, I will often find myself seeing ingredients, fruits that I don't personally know what they are. And, especially when we're in more remote rural areas, I'm just like, I'm shocked to this day how many, things there are out there that I still have not encountered. And so, yeah, I need the right guest. That needs to be something where I find myself somehow being put in contact with somebody who's an authority on fruit. And if I do, then they will be our guest. Daria, my feed is kind of looking a little choppy. Yours is fine. It's just it's on the way in, not the way out. It's what? It's good to you? Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry. My personal laptop is not great. Okay. Let's continue. So, do you find yourself feeling dissatisfied or ambivalent towards Western cuisine the longer you spend time in Asia? This is from Sneed Oils. I often come home and can't help but roll my eyes at what passes for great cuisine back home. That's a really interesting question. Do I find myself feeling disappointed in or let down by Western food, having spent so much time in Asia? I think that wherever you go, I don't tend to gravitate towards people who are really down on Western food. Yes, of course, this is Asia. It's paradise. It's the tropics. I think it's more about temperature. You look at the lines of latitude. That is more important than Asia. You go to Mexico and Central America, and you're going to be just as blown away by the vibrance of flavors and ingredients and spices and we are blessed in China, in Southeast Asia, for this abundance of natural ingredients. It's the same in India. It's the same in Central America. All of those places are wildly exciting to eat. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We were like, if you're lucky enough to be in somebody's home anywhere in the world, Yes?
I think so.
Can you see me now? I'm back? Sorry, guys. Thank you. Hey, for those of you who stuck around, thank you very much. This is a YouTube thing. This is not on my end. I'm back. So where did we leave off? Let's just pretend that didn't happen. All right, let's see. Daria, last question was, we were talking about the how we feel about Western food after living in Asia for so long. I find new stuff exciting. If I'm wherever we've been, I've found something that is exciting. And we were just talking about how, like, yes, if you're here, if you're in Thailand, of course, pizza and burgers, although there are really good pizza and burger places here. That's a bad example. But in general, Western food isn't going to be what it is. Barbecue isn't going to be what it is back home, but that's the case with everything. Thai food isn't the same overseas as it is here. I don't know. I'm not as down on Western food as a lot of people are. That being said, when I'm in the States, I do eat a lot of, let's say, ethnic minority food, partially because it's affordable. But the best meals we had when we were back in the States most recently, Daria, would you agree, were Puerto Rican, Dominican, Honduran, whatever. We did kind of our tour of like the Latin American foods, and that was probably what we most enjoyed. Would you agree with that, Daria? And the Philly cheesesteak is a very good sandwich. All right. Killer Sanders says, I know the country has been done to death by other channels, but is Japan on the table when it comes to creating content, or is that a skip in your book? Nothing's a skip in our book. Our content, like Thailand's been done to death, right? Like, Vietnam, there's a ton online about Vietnam as well, but like we did the story of that, Kim Do, a guy who was was a shoe shine boy, and now he's a Michelin chef. Like we're just here to tell stories. There are so many stories in Japan. Like, I don't think anybody needs us to walk around Ginza and be like, wow, cool ramen. Like, but are there stories in Japan? I think like so many of the oldest establishments, restaurants, and hotels in the entire world. Japan is what I was just having this conversation off air with somebody, not that long ago, about how, like, I don't understand. I feel like, life is exciting and meant to be lived to the fullest. And I love getting a chance to kind of see and experience a lot of different things. I could not personally imagine devoting, 70 years of your life to doing exactly the same thing every day, to mastering something. Like, that is that's why I love covering this on the channel. Somebody who is willing to give up their own, what I would consider to be freedom, and to devote their life to just mastering one thing. That's what I love covering. I love doing these stories on, like, the muscle noodles guy, spent 70 years making the same egg noodles every day. Like, this kind of story is so fascinating and inspiring to me because it's so unrelatable. Like, I can't even imagine, spending 10 years doing just one thing, much less spending my entire life doing it, But that is the culture in Thailand. It's the culture in China. It's the culture in Japan to a different degree. Japan is all about the mastery. It's very much a culture that values devoting yourself to something and being perfect at it. And so from a food video standpoint, like, I think that we could never leave Japan. We could just make OTR a channel where we covered, the grandmaster 5th generation who makes, I follow a couple of Instagram channels where I'm just constantly seeing these videos of, like, oh, I want to go film that. I want to go there. Oh, here's this small town where this one guy has been making this. He's got 2 seats and he doesn't have a menu, and he just makes this one bowl of noodles, and he's 205 years old. And, like, I see this kind of stuff every day. It's always in Japan, and I always want to just get on a plane and go make a video. It's not that the rest of the world doesn't have, things like that as well, but it's such an important part of Japanese culture. This just, like, humbling yourself, before your craft, just mastering something and never having the ambition to, like, when I had my first restaurant, I had my first restaurant. 5 days later, I'm like, okay, when do we open the second one? How do we scale up? How do we make this into a chain? And that's where I think in Japan, especially, that's not a consideration for most people. The culture is very much, in terms of food, not about how do I maximize profit, how do I build an empire. It's the art is in the technique, in getting the details right, in just, you can feel proud if you never expand beyond a single 5-seat noodle shop, if you're making those noodles perfectly and you never cut corners. And I just adore Japanese food culture. I would be very out of place living there, with my own, not growing up in that, when I want to just like be going 100 miles an hour, but in terms of, like, to answer your question about do we want to make content in Japan? Oh yeah, very much so. That is a gold mine of stories that I would love to get on tape. I would love to do it. Bruce Chamberlain, I know you've been asked this many times before, but how long have you and Daria been together? Daria, do you remember? I'm better than you at this. I remember our anniversary. November. You got the month correct. November, what year? 2017. You're correct. So you're coming up on 8 years now. What day in November?
I don't remember.
Take a guess.
7th. No?
6th. Yeah, almost. Bruce Shoemaker asks, why did you go to China originally? I was a sportscaster. That was the only thing I ever thought I was going to do. That was all I was qualified to do. I was a play-by-play guy. So I was the guy who, like, you're watching a football game and somebody's like, Tom Brady throws left side, touchdown. Like, that was me. I was the guy calling live games. Worked for CBS Sports. Had a great job. Loved what I was doing, was climbing the ladder. And then 2008 financial crisis, media industry collapses. I get laid off. And then I get another job and I get laid off from that. And all around me were people who were working in this industry, who were my heroes, and been doing it forever. And they couldn't get new. All of a sudden, like, it just fell apart, and I could talk about that for hours, like the death of media. But it was clear. I was at the time 24, 2008, when the crisis hit. And so I was young enough that I was okay. I could start again. A lot of people couldn't. And I was scared of being in an industry where, if I went from making, a lot of money. I was 19 years old. I was making probably 6 figures. And then I was 25 and I was making $9 an hour. And I'm like, this is trending in the wrong direction. Like, this is not how it's supposed to go. I'm not supposed to be, seeing my salary reducing every year to the point where I'm now, like, working in kitchens and bartending just to pay my rent. And yeah, so I was having this crisis of, what am I going to do? I don't have a backup plan. And my girlfriend at the time also was in the same position. She'd just gotten her master's degree, couldn't get a job because of the crisis. So she went and took a year and taught English. She applied for jobs in Asia. She ends up getting placed in a city that I'd never heard of before called Shenzhen in southern China. We agreed to stay together under the condition that I come over to visit at one point during the year. And the very short version of the story is she left and I stayed. And it's a little bit more complicated than that. But I knew from the second I'd never been to Asia before, never, didn't even have a passport at that point. My passport had expired. I had to get a new one to go visit. And within an hour of being in China, I knew that I was not going to leave, and I did leave. I went back home when my trip was over, but I knew that was home. And it wasn't, it was China, and it was Chinese food, which obviously became a big part of my life, the biggest part of my life for a long time. But it was also, I liked myself. It wasn't that I liked China. I liked China. We were in China at the right time. It was an incredibly exciting place to be, but even more than how much I liked China, I liked who I was in China. I liked myself there more than I liked myself in Charlottesville, Virginia, in a small town where I knew everybody and everybody knew me. And you can close your eyes and drive the same roads every day. and everyone is like, America's a big corporate culture. You get a job and you work that job and you need that job for health insurance. And I'm going to get political for a second. In America, in the West, not just the US, in the West, in the developed world, you get one chance to try something. You want to start a business. Okay. You're going to start a restaurant. You want to open anything. You want to start a business. You get one chance, and if you fail, you're in tax debt, credit debt. Just to get a liquor license to run a restaurant in the States is prohibitively expensive. You can't do it without either going into debt or pushing all your cards under the table or being a big company. And it's the same with every line of work that you might want to be in. And what I found so exciting about China was, yes, there is no social safety net. That's hard. The government's not going to help you if you get yourself into trouble, but it's not going to stand in your way. At least it wasn't. China's changed a lot since 2010, but you could kind of just do it. You have an idea, do it. And if you fail, well, just go pick up the pieces, go get a job for a few weeks, save up some money and do it again. The first restaurant I ever opened, we had no money. I didn't have the money to get a license for it. And it didn't matter because it was China. You just give a carton of cigarettes to the license guy and you become friends with him. And that's all right. That's good enough. You did it. You're just, the only rule in China is just don't be an asshole. And so, yeah, we didn't have any money. We renovated the place by hand ourselves. We hired some contractors to come turn a stairwell around because it was blocking where we were going to build the bar. But other than that, we did it. I had to learn how to do electrical wiring and plumbing and putting in insulation and painting and all this stuff we did ourselves because we didn't have any money. And imagine doing that. I think we opened our first restaurant, which ended up winning Bar of the Year in Beijing. It did really well. We that turned into a few restaurants quickly. It was kind of an upscale sort of Mexican cocktail gastro bar, whatever you want to call it, but it was super laid back and casual. It was a elevated food in it was a cool place. And I think we probably did that for less than $10,000, total. Imagine and that's everything. That's all in just to open the business. And that's, for us at the time, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but it was not enough that you're going to be, the rest of your life is ruined if it fails, and it lets you take chances. It breeds more creativity when you can take a risk and not go all in. It breeds a lot more creativity. It's why Bangkok's a great city for F&B, because you have a weird idea. You can try it in Bangkok because the rent is cheap. Staffing costs are low. If it doesn't work, you're probably still going to come close enough to breaking even that you won't lose everything. Imagine go to Hong Kong right now. That creativity's gone. It's been gone for a long time in Hong Kong because in Singapore, prices are so high. It has to work. You have to succeed, because if you don't, then yeah, it's I just saw the question real quick. I'll get back to Daria's list, which is well organized, but TBKM, what was the name of the place in Beijing? I was there around that time. First one, see if anybody gets the football reference, was called Run Mexico. Run Mexico was in Andingmen in the Hutongs. The second Run Mexico was in Gulo. And then we had a place that was a spinoff of it called Sid Finch's, which is also an American kind of off-color sports reference. And that was in Tiananmen. That was a block off of Tiananmen Square on Yangmei Jie was the Hutong name where Sid Finch's was. And it was a part of a few others in Beijing, but those were the three that I was just talking about. So VJ Owlglass, howdy. Do you plan on doing an episode in Jakarta? Yes, I'm going to do some scouting. If you missed that part earlier in the video, me and Daria are flying to Jakarta in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. What day do we fly out? Okay, so 2 weeks we fly out to Jakarta, but it's not for filming. It is to go to a Foo Fighters concert. But while we're there, Daria, to her credit, has kind of game planned our food, trip to Jakarta. She's been making the list of everything we have to do and try in the city. So we're not going to film there this time. We I'm careful with where we film because in general, we have to film places I know well because we don't have like, it's a quite intensive process. Once we arrive in a place, we need to be like, I mean, we're making hour-long documentaries every 2 weeks, right? Like every 10 days to 2 weeks. This is insane. Like we don't have time to waste to stay on a production schedule. We also don't have money to waste, and so when we're filming overseas, there's a lot of pressure on it where it's like, okay, I can go there, get set up, by the time Dennis and Carol fly in, my production team, like we need to kind of be like, if we're gonna, so Lao last year we filmed 2 videos. Vietnam we filmed 3, Lao we filmed 2, Indonesia we filmed 3, and all those trips were 5 days, roughly 5 days. So if we're making 3 videos in 5 days, it's got to be a place that I really know. Like, and I don't know Jakarta very well. I did at one point somewhat. The reason why we chose Medan as our home base for our first Indonesian content is because I know Medan. I know the people, I know the stories, I know the restaurants to go to, and that lets us just from a production standpoint, just film and not waste our time and not lose too much money on being wrong or not having a plan put together. And it's going to be that way for a while until we really have a little bit more flexibility. Again, that's why I say the next places we're going to film, we'll do Taipei, we'll do Hong Kong, we'll do Sri Lanka. There are places that I feel like I know well enough that I can make a plan where we're going to do this Kuala Lumpur. Singapore, I don't know very well, but I know people who at least can help guide us. But yeah, so that's at this point, we're still kind of locked into, we need to really focus on places that we know. But my hope is that in between Daria and I losing our voice at the Foo Fighters concert, the hope is that we will learn enough about Jakarta to be ready to make a video. It's an interesting city. It's an interesting city. Okay, Daria, continuing on the list. I'm at the bottom of this. Are we caught up completely on questions? Okay, Daria, you speak Russian. Artem or Artyom? Artyom. Okay, I saw that. I realized I'm saying it incorrectly. Artyom says, what if you run out of basic ingredients? We're getting close to water and air. Are we talking about like to make the history of videos? Like if we run out of basic ingredients, like we did the history of bread, the history of rice, the history of, like we run out of those basic ones. That's the challenge. I wanted to kind of do the history of breakfast as a test because that was a very arbitrary is the wrong word. That was a very history of breakfast. I don't know what's the word that I'm looking for with that. That was one that was, I felt like if we can get away with doing the history, because it's a much broader topic. It's a super interesting kind of, I just saw out of the corner of my eye, I saw somebody do the history of MSG. And I'm like, oh, Daria says that all the time. And then I realized that was you who actually wrote that. Yeah, we ran out of those basic ones. I wanted to do the history of breakfast as a test of whether you would like that, whether you would accept that kind of video, because it's a little bit less about, we're not just picking one topic, grain. How was it cultivated? It goes from point A to point B to point C. Here's the story. Here's the mythology. That's the video. Breakfast was more like, I remember reading a book from, what's his name? Bill Bryson, a long time ago, read a book called At Home, which was, he moved to an English farmhouse. If I remember, this is 15 years ago or more that I read it, but moves to an English farmhouse. And then he just starts asking, like, why are they all built 4/4? Why do we have salt and pepper on the tables? Why are the doors like this? Why do we use these doorknobs? Just these basic questions. And I thought this was such a cool thing to kind of want to, to kind of wonder about. And for me, the history of breakfast was like, well, okay, we're not tracing one ingredient, but why do we eat 3 meals a day? Why do we have this eating schedule? Has there been trial and error? Have we kind of, was there a time when it was completely different? How did we end up sort of all following the same path? And that was an interesting question to explore. And so I think, in the future, once we get past the basic ingredients for the history of videos, I want to get into pork is an interesting one, meats in general. Yeah, I've got a spreadsheet. I've got a whole bunch of kind of random stuff that I want to kind of explore and play with. But again, we only have one. Ultimately, the only rule on OTR is I have to like it. You know, if I find the topic interesting and I want to dive into something and devote, 2 weeks of my life to doing nothing but living in that world, plus another several months of back end research before we start it. If something's interesting enough to me to do that work, then I trust that it'll be interesting enough to you to watch. Yeah, Daria, did you double check? Are we at the end of have we caught up with all the questions? If we have caught up with the questions, please feel free to throw in some more. I'm just getting, it's 10 o'clock. I've got some time. I'm not going to be, I'm happy to just go rest my voice and drink some wine and take the rest of the evening off, but history of fermentation in Asia. Somebody asked that in the chat. Please request the history of fermentation in Asia. Yes. Yeah, cool. Good idea. Happy to do it. If you have any more questions, throw them in. I'll be here for a little while longer. And thank you again to everybody. Number one, everybody who's here, people who have supported us, whether it's from viewing our videos or through Patreon or anything else. I appreciate all of you just being here and taking your time to be online with me. It's fun to talk to you. It's fun to hear from you. I know that I'm just trying to answer questions, and some of you have made comments to me that maybe I haven't seen because I'm just answering questions. But Daria is adding some more. You're adding some more questions. I might have missed some things that you wanted me to read. When this is over, I'll go back and read through everything. So don't worry, I'll read whatever you guys have sent me. I just checked on the chat. Food Taliban. It was nice. Speaking of meetups, you reached out when you came to Bangkok. We caught up for a beer. Taiwan, yes. When the rainy season is over, we have a few videos planned that we can't do right now because it's still rainy season. We're going to do a video that Dennis is really passionate about with the Moken people, the Sea Gypsies, as they're called, which will go down to the other Koh Chang to make that story out. There's a whole backstory as to why this is such a passion project for Dennis, but I'm really excited to do that one, but we need to wait for the monsoons to pass. The other one is Khao Yai, the wineries. That'll be the first time you'll most likely see Daria hosting a video herself. You ready to do the wine video?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, the Thai wine culture is really interesting. I've been to wineries in the Middle East. I've been to wineries, it's crazy how we can, adapt our agriculture to different climates. And the winery that we visited in Khao Yai was pretty good. It was actually pretty good. And yeah, so Taiwan, yes, to answer your question. Checking Daria's messages to me. So where did I end? Have I heard of buah kulim? Pretty cool ingredient in Southeast Asia. That's it's like how do I explain it? It's like a nut, kind of. Yeah, that's the thing that's it sort of tastes like a truffle. It's, I think in Malay cooking, they'll use it, they call it jungle garlic, if I remember right. I know very little about it. That's one that, what was even the question about that? Sorry. Have I heard of it? Yes, I've heard of it. Pretty cool ingredient. I can go that far. I have heard of it. It's a cool ingredient. I don't think I've ever cooked with it before, but I've tasted it, and it is a cool ingredient. James Blackwell, how's the whiskey in Thailand? You could do beer and whiskey as part 1 and part 2. Every Asian country has an interesting liquor brewing or distilling culture. I always associate that with Lao, just maybe it's because that was a big part of the tourist thing in Lao, that you just kind of, wherever you go in the jungle, they'll take you somewhere where they're making Lao, the intense whiskey. But how is the whiskey in Thailand? If I'm taking your question directly, how is the whiskey in Thailand? Not good. Don Dobbs, can you do khao soy and its attachment to Burmese food? Maybe. We will do a khao soy video. We have to go to Chiang Mai one of these days. It's crazy that we haven't yet. Chiang Mai is absolutely the next necessary step in Thailand, and we will do a khao soy video. Why I say maybe, Chris from Chinese Cooking Demystified, when Chris was here in Bangkok, he went down that rabbit hole for a while where he wanted to kind of, because there's a Yunnan component of that cut noodles of the, this part of the world, Shan State, Myanmar, Yunnan, Northern Thailand, there's so much commonality in ingredients and techniques. And so Chris is like, I get very wonky and nerdy in my research. Chris takes that to another extreme. And he went down the rabbit hole of trying to kind of find the real origins of khao soi. And he worked on this like at the expense of his personal health and well-being and family happiness. He worked on this for a year and finally just shelved it and said, I just can't. It's just impossible. This goes back to what I was saying about fish cakes earlier. I can't do a story on history if I don't know the history. At this point, I'm happy to do a story about khao soi. I can talk about the different variations of it. But as to who made it first and where it came from, it is a really, really difficult one to unravel. And sometimes, our limitations on the channel are our limitations are what information is accessible. We can use our logic and we can kind of come to some assumptions. But the actual story, there's like, you get on the Thai internet and it's like, what is it? They're saying it's like a 1930s or 1940s dish, and they're like assigning who invented it in Thailand, and then in Myanmar, it's been made for hundreds of years. And then there's Lao khao soi, which is completely unrelated. And then you have soups that look very similar with the same yellow noodles. Chris was just at a random village in Yunnan province that's making yellow khao soi noodles a million miles off the highway. Like it's a hard topic to unravel, that the deeper you get into it, the more your head starts to explode. But we will eat khao soi on camera. That is definitely going to be a plan. Artyom asks, do we want to do any Russian foods? And as a follow-up, knowing that Daria is from Russia, have you explored, this follow-up is from a different person? Yeah. Stick and Leaf asks, so I see, these are two people asking similar questions. Artyom asks, do you want to do any Russian foods? And then Stick and Leaf asks, knowing that Daria is from Russia, have you explored what food is available in Russia, at least where Daria comes from? And was there any food similarity in Russia and Mongolia, for example? Well, funny you asked that. Daria, speaking of Chris's obsession, Daria, do you want to join us and talk about you're busy with your question screening? Daria has become obsessed with Korean Russian cuisine. So Daria's from Khabarovsk, which is the far east. It's like on the Chinese border, on the Amur River, like far east, almost like the closest big city is Harbin. It's closer than Vladivostok. And, and so there's a big Korean diaspora, but it's not just in Russian food. It's in Uzbek food. There's a Korean influence on Russian and Central Asian food is Daria's newest obsession. And she is desperately trying to get me to do a video on it. We cannot go to Russia to tape for reasons that you can probably guess. Uzbekistan is very high on the list. We're going to do some post-Soviet countries at some point. And yes, I would absolutely love to go down that road in terms of Russian food, but would be interested to go to St. Petersburg and do White Rabbit and find out what Russian food was like before Moscow, I guess, and do White Rabbit. What was Russian food before the Soviets came in? That's interesting. But to me, the one that I have to do to get Daria off my back is Russian Korean food. That's a fascinating topic and a completely different category of food that is massively influential, and it's an interesting subject. So yeah, that's very high on the agenda. I'm going to kind of gloss over the next question a little bit when Mohammed Ishmael asks, why don't I take sponsors to support the work? Because I kind of touched on that earlier, but the short answer is I would love to. I'm never saying never. I won't say that like, we won't sell out. I would be happy. I wish I could sell out. I would love to sell out. The main thing for me is I just, sponsors generally view YouTube channels as a one size fits all kind of thing. We get offers quite frequently on a daily basis. If somebody reaching out, their expectation is I'm going to do what they call an integration. Within the first few minutes of the video, they want me as the host to look into the camera and tell you about their product. They want me to sit here and be like, hey, by the way, and they call it an integration because they want it integrated into the video so that you don't skip over it. So I'm talking about, pretty heavy stuff on this channel. So like, and again, every beat of every video is designed to maximize the story that we're telling, to take you on a journey from point A to point B, and to integrate into that journey, a sponsored, like, have I talked to you about 5 Hour Energy? Or like, have you heard about, what is it? You see the sponsors that do all the same YouTube videos. It would ruin our content. So I don't have any judgment towards channels that sell ads. I wish we could do it. If you have a YouTube channel and you're selling sponsorships on yours, good on you. Keep doing it. Make the money. I wish I could. It just doesn't fit with the style of videos that we're doing. I feel like it would take you out of the story. Me and Daria watch movies differently. This is very relevant to OTR. Daria and I watch movies in a very different way from each other. I will watch a movie and I want to get, Daria watches something. She thinks like a director. So we'll put a TV show or put a movie on, and Daria's thinking about like directorial choices, how they lit a certain scene, how the actor chose to act a certain scene. I'll watch a movie and I want to just get lost in it. I want to forget that I'm watching a movie. I want to just be in a world. I'll watch Braveheart. That kind of, give me a big historical epic where I could shut my brain off and get lost in something, and I'm happy. And that's how I like to watch something. And for OTR videos, that's what I want you to do. I want you to be able, and I know it sounds ridiculous for me to say that when we're doing like, Pad Kapow, like, but if you watch our videos, you understand, like, we are trying to kind of, I want you to kind of feel like you're in this world with us. I want to bring you into the stories that we're telling. And, with Dennis and Carol's amazing videography, and with our, musical choices are really carefully kind of picked from what we legally have access to. And everything from like the pauses to, it's all done to bring you in and let you kind of forget this messy world we all live in right now, and just enjoy a video for a while and get lost in the story and turn your brain off and enjoy it. And I just don't want to take you out of that. I don't want to, it would be violating everything I believe about cinema and filmmaking to intentionally take you out of it. So yeah, if there was a sponsor one day that came to us and they said, hey, Adam, we will give you money if you'll put our logo on the screen, and then at the end of the video after the credits, you can talk about it for 30 seconds. Like, yeah, of course, I would do that in a heartbeat. If I could somehow benefit the channel and take some pressure off while at the same time not wrecking the video, I would do it. I'm not against the idea of selling advertising, but I am against the idea of doing anything that might ruin our videos, because we work way too hard on them to make them worse, right? Kim says, where do you get most of your research from, especially when doing these history of videos? As a follow-up, Oral Archipelago asks, any recommended food historians to read? Every video is different. My process is very strange, but it works. So I usually start by 3 things, which is, just stay with me because this is going to sound bad in the beginning, but 3 things that I usually start with are going to be basic Google search, Wikipedia, and college dissertations. And the reason why is because all 3 of those have citations at the bottom, right? And if I can find citations, so I Google search something and I see a basic article about it and it quotes a book, there's a book I need to find. College dissertation, amazing. Like, what are your sources? That I'm cheating. You just gave me your sources. Now I know where I can go to learn more. And Wikipedia is the same thing at the bottom. If you go to just what is tea, at the bottom, most likely you're going to see at least a few books, or very interesting articles, or something that gives me a starting point. there is no like there. I mean, obviously, like Salt was easy because you have Mark Kurlansky. You have some great writers who've really focused on a certain topic. Usually, it's a little bit more difficult. A lot of our research is not done in English. Thankfully, I can read Chinese. I have assistants who can help me when it's Thai language. AI, fortunately, as a translation tool, has gotten better, at least enough for me to kind of get a head start on whether something's of value or not. Yeah, it's hard, but like what I'll basically do is I'll start by essentially like I just want data. I'll make 100 pages of notes, and whether it's me making notes from a book or whether it's copy and pasting something from an article or whatever, I'm just going to start with a ton of notes, right? A ton of notes, hundreds of pages of it, just raw notes. As I'm reading something, what's interesting, write it down. There you go. So now I've made my notes. Then the second step is organizing those notes into how a video might come together. Here's the prehistory. Here's the first 1,000 years, and just have different pages. And then the longest part of the process is verifying all that stuff. So now I have my notes. Then I need to, before I even start writing the video, I need to go back through every single thing that might make the video and start confirming it, start finding out whether it's true or not. The scary thing about right now is that you can't just Google something to find out whether it's correct, because there are so many things that we'll find fascinating. And then I'll go to find a second source for it. And it's easy. I can find 10 sources, but all 10, the wording is so similar. You can tell that they all just copy and pasted from the same original source, and that's not good enough. We can't go with that. And so finding the basic information about something, especially when you're searching in a few languages and you have people helping you, is pretty easy. Narrowing down what's verifiable is the longest part of the process. And then after we kind of end up with one document that's now, this is what I have. These are the facts that I have organized into time or whatever, however I want to organize it. And then all that's left is what we can verify, and I will put my reputation behind. Then I can start kind of framing and beginning to write a video, and then we'll do more research to fill in the gaps as we put this together. I hope that helps. I don't know. That's a very oversimplification of it. These are long processes, but that's kind of the basic easy start for it. David Goings asks, congratulations on the 3 years. Any local YouTubers you want to do more collaborations with or tag along? Local meaning Thailand based. We filmed our next video yesterday. And so Dennis and Carol were here last night after we finished filming at my house. So they're back here with the gear afterwards. And we're just, crack a bottle of wine and, celebrating a really good shoot. And Dennis brought up, somehow we were talking about this alien mountain in, this mountain where Thai people believe like there are alien sightings, the UFO mountain. It's in Nakhon Sawan. And there was a YouTuber, this German guy named John. He calls himself John Runaway. And he did a video from there, and it's awesome. It's such a cool video. So I'm showing this. I put it on the big screen. I'm showing this to everybody. We're watching this last night and just getting such a kick out of, watching this video. And it has like, I don't know, a couple thousand views. When I was starting and we didn't have any traction, bigger channels than me helped. Like Gary was a huge help for us. Sid from Big Forkers, my good friend from Shenzhen. At the time, I think when we did a collaboration together, I had like 500 subscribers. He had probably 50,000, and it was a huge help, like giving us a leg up. We're at the point now where like, if Mark Weens reaches out and wants to do a video together, I would love to do a video with Mark. Like, that's one that I would do. I would do a video with Mark Weens one day, like find out who he really is. I would do a Mark story. He's an interesting character. There's a ton of great YouTube channels. If Max Miller or anybody reaches out to me and wants to do a video together, I'm always a yes. I'm happy to collaborate with anybody. But if the question is, who do I want to do a collaboration with? I want to do for other people what they did for me when I was starting out. I'd like to, I think it'd be cool to kind of try and help out some smaller channels that really deserve it. People this is a hard way to make a living. And we got some lucky breaks, and You know, I like, there's good channels that never make it. There's good channels that never get, you know, even the small slice of the internet that we've gotten. And I think it would be really cool for us to be able to give back a little bit. And yeah, so no, the collaborations that I'd like to do, I'd like to be able to kind of do some videos where we can, you know, I want to steal John's idea. I want to go to this UFO mountain. He's done some amazing content that nobody watched. And I would like to do those videos. I'm jealous that he did them and we didn't think of them. And so if we collaborate on something, it's like we did this with, this is what I'm proud of. We've kind of blown up a few people's channels, which is really cool for me. You know, we did it before in the curry video with Keith Saracen, who had like 8,000 subscribers, but he made this incredible video on the offensiveness to some people of the word curry. And so I was going to just basically rip him off completely. And I thought, if I'm going to do this in my curry video, I'm just going to let him, I'd rather give him let's just have him come on and say all the things that I want to say, you know, because I got them from his idea. And so we had him on that video, and his, like, overnight, his channel went from like 8,000 to like 50,000. And he became, you know, quite successful with his YouTube channel. He's an amazing chef, just published a new cookbook. Like, Keith deserves all of the success, and he was going to be successful with or without us. But it's a cool feeling when you can kind of give that platform to someone who deserves it. And as we get bigger, I'd like to, you know, if you know anybody, or you yourself are making content and it's good, you know, or you know somebody who deserves more attention than they're getting, it's easy for the algorithm to bury you. Send them to me. You know, feel free to recommend, you know, any channels that deserve it. And if there's any way that I can possibly work with them, I think that would be awesome. Wiener Virgil says, would be interested in your opinion on my hot take. We're jumping topics aggressively on this. There are no unique cooking techniques. All cooking cultures do the same thing to food, only the tools and ingredients are different. Hope that makes sense. Okay, let me read this again while I take a sip of wine. There are no unique cooking techniques. All cooking cultures do the same thing to food, only the tools and ingredients are different. Hope that makes sense. Look, I see where you're coming from on that. We are very reactive to the ingredients that we have, and our cooking techniques have evolved based on how we're going to make use of the stuff that we have access to, you know. And yeah, I mean, we all learned how to boil. Like, once we all learned how to make a fire, we started cooking over fire. You know, we couldn't chew something, we started pounding it. You know, yeah, there are commonalities. There are similarities, you know, across all the continents. I think that's a rabbit hole that I would need a lot more wine to go down. I'd be interested to hear you explain that. But I'm interpreting that as you saying that our techniques have evolved based on what ingredients we have. And if we all had the same ingredients, we all would have probably prepared them in a similar way. Okay, he sent an explainer. Technique for Austrian filled dumplings and Indian filled steamed dumplings are identical, even the ratios, even though there are thousands of miles apart. Oh, there's a lot of examples of that kind of thing. You know, there's like, it's wild how, you know, the ceviche developed, like, using, it was fermented passion fruit in Peru, and it was lime, it was calamansi in the Philippines, but it developed the same, curing the fish with something sour and acidic and adding these, like, you know, chopped onions and things like that, developed in two completely different parts of the world, you know, thousands of years before there was any interaction between them. Yeah, there's a lot of stories like this. Yeah, there's a lot of stories like this. VJ Hourglass says, it's a great comment. I'm going to think more about that. I'll give that some more thought. And next time we do a live stream, I'll come more prepared to analyze that properly. VJ says, what's your favorite item in a Padang restaurant? The layman's answer, which is also still the correct answer, is nasi padang. Is beef rendang, because beef rendang is obviously the correct answer. That's the litmus test. However, for me, I have this test where I ask the cooks, what's your specialty? Obviously for me, I like if you mess up the jackfruit, the gulai nangka, the jackfruit curry, you mess up the beef rendang, I don't trust you. But if you get those two things right, nasi padang, everyone kind of has their own specialties, their own things that they do. Like when we're taping in Medan, the place that we filmed on the second night, the What is Indonesian Food, that nasi padang restaurant, their specialty was their sambal made with tempeh, dried fish, and eggplant. That was what they said, that this is what we make better than anybody else. Cool. Like, yeah, awesome. I'm gonna get that. Like, yeah, there's a couple places that like it's become kind of trendy in Sumatra for nasi padang places to compete with fried chicken. Like fried chicken is now, that marinated, really lean, free range fried chicken is that's a thing that like a lot of nasi padang places now are really kind of showing off, that like we want to stand out with the best fried chicken. I don't know. I'll ask around, but my advice, if you're asking this because you're going to go to a nasi padang restaurant and you want to know what you need to try, beef rendang, jackfruit curry, sambal, and then just ask them, hey, what's your specialty? What do you make really, really well? Motasin, this is probably not going to be a 1 hour video, but did you ever think about the history of how people moved away from eating with their hands and how utensils involved? 100%. Absolutely. Yes. Like a lot of people have asked for that. That is one that we will do. Like, I don't even have a follow-up to saying that is one that we will absolutely take on. Yeah. Interesting topic. And it is one that, like, I told you that in the background, I have my list of things that we might one day work on. And then slowly I'll kind of research them so that I can't do the history of tea in a 2-week production window. We have to have done a lot of our research before we start in production. And that's one that I have my notes page has been slowly growing over the years. James says, I'm a Panthers fan. Congratulations on your Bills fandom. Have you thought about an episode on food culture around Thai sports? First of all, James, sorry about Bryce Young. I still believe in him. Like Panthers. I've been to plenty of games in Charlotte. I wish your organization well. But as a Bills fan, having been through the wilderness, I know what it feels like right now. Yeah, so we did the ice hockey video here, which was a really cool one. That's one I'm incredibly proud of. In our early days, it's one that, like, again, this is one of those that, like, that the reason why I say I'm proud of it, I'm not necessarily like, it was a great video. It's one that I think came out really well, but it's more that makes me really happy when it's like, we're going to just defy expectations. The internet, YouTube wants us to make like very digestible, straightforward content. We're not going to do that. I'm going to make a video on a donut shop at an ice hockey rink, because that to me is crazy interesting. And like, if you never watched our video on Thai ice hockey, it's from like, I can tell you when it was. It was Daria's birthday. We released that one. It was when we were in Koh Chang. We posted it. So it would be March 2023. So it was more than 2 years ago. It was one of our early videos. But the video on Thai ice hockey, that was such a fun one to make. And I think it came out really well. And there's a bunch of twists. That one has some big plot twists that you won't see coming. So yeah, Barefoot Hiking, love the channel. Particularly the history of videos. Would love to see you travel to other countries and continents as well. What is your favorite movie? Cool. We get a question that's not on food. And is Laozi still your favorite dish? Laozi is my comfort dish. That's Chinese. If you don't recognize the name, Sichuan spicy chicken, my favorite thing to cook. Why was I hungover? We went to an event last week. Dude Sweet, from our video we made on Song Wat, on Song Wat neighborhood pretty recently. The guy we interviewed and talked about, the party king of Bangkok, Mr. Dude Sweet, had his reunion event, and we were invited, and we came and had a great time. And the next day I was in pain, and when I'm in pain, and I don't drink often, but when I do, lots of G. That was how, like, I ordered. There's one place in Bangkok that makes a good version. Just in case you're in Bangkok and you're wondering, it's in Siloam, and it's on Rama 3. It's like Nang Lin Chi area, and it's called Chuan Wei Fang. You can search Chuan Wei Fang. If you don't speak Chinese or write Chinese, ChuanWeifang, Chuan Wei Fang. They actually make a good lassi. It's the only one in Bangkok. Anyway, favorite movie. Favorite movie.
Don't look at me.
Is that the name of the movie? That sounds like the kind of movie. Daria just says, "Don't look at me." Like, it sounds like the kind of movie that you would like. Favorite movie. I can go back and rewatch anytime. There's a few that are on my list that I can always go back and rewatch. What We Do in the Shadows is a classic. Am I wrong?
You're very right.
Royal Tenenbaums is a great one. In Bruges is a fun one that I can watch once a year if we want to. And then if we're considering Twin Peaks season 3, which David Lynch called an 18-hour-long movie, if that's a movie, then that wins. Twin Peaks season 3. Yeah, if you call that a movie, that's an all-timer. I don't know. Daria is a big movie buff, so until we met, I was very much like I'd probably seen 15 movies in my entire life before I met Daria. But she's a movie buff. She got me. There's a level of weirdness that I can't quite get beyond. I still kind of I'm a little bit more basic than Daria when it comes to our movie tastes. But yeah, good question. Favorite movie ever.
She does. Does she like Tarkovsky? She does. Every Russian does.
Does she like Tarkovsky? She if you can't hear her in the background, Daria says she does. She very much does. Oral Archipelago, who's your favorite food writer or historian? Food writer or historian. I'm going to tell you something that, like, I don't watch any food-related content at all, and I don't read much unless it's specific to research a topic that we are covering. And the reason why is because I am afraid of second guessing myself. When I watch somebody else making content, making videos, when I watch anything else that's food related, if I find myself thinking, oh, that's good, that's a really cool idea, then sometimes I'm afraid of it getting into my head and I start trying to write in a different way. And if you see my YouTube feed, it's very much not food. I'm watching football, hockey highlights, sports stuff, true crime nonsense, Saturday Night Live drama, like whatever. I'm watching stuff that has nothing to do with what I make, because if I watch anything in my space, I am, it gets into my head and it makes it harder for me to write. It makes it harder for me to I need to fully, like, what we do is so hard. Again, we're making hour-long documentaries every 2 weeks. It's impossible. And we're a tiny team. It's me, Dennis, and Carol, and Daria. And we are a tiny, tiny, tiny team. And every word in our videos is me still. And it's impossible. It's what we're doing is so hard that even like the only thing that lets you do it is believing that what you're doing is right. And you have to believe that we are making something special. We're on the right track. And when I start second guessing myself, it makes this impossible. And if I watch I'm not afraid of watching something that I won't like. I'm afraid of watching something that I'm going to love, because that makes me second guess myself and it makes it harder to do this. So I don't know if that answers your question. And then when it comes to reading food historians, again, I'm very dedicated to, I will read about the subjects that we're researching. Beyond that, that's not an escape for me. I'm reading Dune right now, slowly working my way through it. Usually I read nonfiction. I just finished, what did I finish just before Dune? I read the whole John Krakauer series again. Into the Wild, like that's one of those books I can just read like once a year. Hunter S. Thompson's a favorite forever. I just read Killing Pablo, the Pablo Escobar book, is one that I just finished. I have a lot of like David McCullough kind of dry history stuff. Bill Bryson is what I'll take to the beach, usually on vacation somewhere if I need a mindless book. But like food is not an escape for me. Food is what I do 24/7. And so, I don't read or watch food related content for fun. I hope that answers your question. It's a great question. Yeah. Okay. Andong Pham says, do you think Vietnamese food is overrated? No. Vietnamese food is like Thai food. There's 5 dishes everybody knows outside of Vietnam, but you go to the country and it's a lot broader than do I think pho is overrated? I kind of said it in our video that we did on pho, kind of. Do I think that pho is give me lao khao soi. That's a better rice noodle soup for me, for my palate. Do I think Vietnamese food is overrated? No, I adore Vietnamese. Vietnamese food is just that is one of my favorite food cultures on earth. Just the brightness of the herbs in them, the simplicity of Vietnamese food in a really good way. I think Vietnamese food is incredibly underrated because people think that Vietnamese food is pho, banh mi, I don't know, what else comes to mind? Cafe chung. It's spring rolls, and the truth is, no, Vietnamese food in Vietnam is massively underrated. And yeah, that's my take on that. Every place I've ever been in Vietnam has its own specialties that are just so much better than anything you'd get at a Vietnamese restaurant abroad. I adore Vietnamese food and I think it's underrated. And on that topic, we're talking about, do I like Vietnamese food? Ahmad Sufian says, do you like Malaysian dishes? Yes, of course. I love Malaysian food. That's our next place overseas to film, probably. Malaysia is a country where I will freely admit I am not an expert. I'm excited to get deeper into what really is Malaysian food. That's a country that I've spent some time, but usually, again, when I was back and forth between China and Indonesia, I would do a 2-day layover, 3 times a year in Malaysia, but I'm just going to my favorites. And I want to know more about Malaysian food culture. I can't wait to dive into it. I have always adored Malaysian food. I can't wait to learn more about it and to film there. Do I like, next question from UEJDNXLS, do I like Anthony Bourdain? I like Anthony Bourdain. I do.
No, I hate the guy.
I like Anthony Bourdain. Way before OTR, when I opened my first restaurant, there's a district in Shenzhen in southern China called Dafan, which is an art oil painting village. It's where all the reproduction artwork for all the targets in the world is made. It's crazy. It's 40,000 artists in one little village just painting, and then when they're not taking commissions for a Walmart or a Target, they're on their own time. They're all brilliant. They all know how to paint. And so they'll take commissions and you can go there and it's one of my favorite places on earth, Dafan. And so every restaurant that I ever opened, we got our artwork commissioned there. And I never had a restaurant. I opened 16 restaurants, and every single one of them, except for Starling, except the American Diner, I don't think we worked this into Starling, except for the American Diner. Every single place that I ever owned, we had a painting commissioned of Anthony Bourdain, some painting that we had in some way incorporated into our decoration. What I love about Bourdain is not, you go back and as a grown-up, going to the places he recommended, it's a TV show. It was, to a degree, it's skin deep to an extent, what I loved about Bourdain and what I think is the most impactful of what he did was he made being weird acceptable. He made it okay. Remember, it wasn't that long ago in the 90s, if you remember, before Bourdain, it wasn't cool to want to be a cook. I might have thought it was cool, but it wasn't socially acceptable. You couldn't tell your parents, you couldn't tell your relatives or your friends that you wanted to be a cook, because that was a profession of last resort, and the idea of I'm going to take my savings and I'm going to go eat street food on the other side of the world was just so far beyond the realm of anything that was socially normal or acceptable. And what Bourdain changed forever was he made food cool. He made Asian food cool for white people, for Westerners. Bourdain made it acceptable for us to be weird, for us to want to try strange dishes, for us to want to just go, anywhere and sit down on a plastic stool in the Middle East, in East Africa, in Southeast Asia, and just try whatever's in front of you. And to say that you wanted to be a cook, I want to devote my life to food. I want to travel and eat. I want to, like, all these things that we forget. This was not always the culture. There would be no OTR if there wasn't Anthony Bourdain, no question. And it's not because Bourdain opened the door for me. It's that he made, like, his impact on food was sort of making this, something that we all felt like was now acceptable. It was okay for us to feel about food the way that we all kind of did, but didn't show outwardly. We wouldn't have, like, it was different for me. I was different. I was raised by a French father who I remember the lesson at a young age that if you have $100 left to your name, you use that $100 to buy one really good meal, and then you worry about rent another time. So food was always very important, but Bourdain made it okay. Made it like it's a very noble pursuit, and giving up a career like what I had in broadcasting and moving to Asia to become a cook in the post-Bourdain world, that made me cool. In the pre-Bourdain world, that would make me someone who would be disowned by everyone who'd ever met me. And that was very impactful. I'm going to get through the rest of the questions that we have right now. If anybody wants to ask any, let's say it's 10:45. I'm going to take this until 11:06. And the reason why I say 11:06, that gives us 19 more minutes. The reason why I say that is because I believe that's going to put us at 2 hours and 36 minutes, which would make this our longest one yet. I think we did 2 hours 30 and 2:34. I'm running out of wine. I may need a beer. I might cut it shorter than that. My voice is starting to fade, and we have football in an hour. Got to walk the dogs. But anyway, let's say I'm going to get through the questions that we have been asked already. I'm going to cut off questions in 5 minutes. Yeah? So any question that's asked within the next 5 minutes, I promise I'm going to answer. If it's after that, we're going to cut it off. Is that fair? Call screener Daria. Okay. Robin Hedstrom says, what do you feel about the importance of water quality for cooking food? In my opinion, good quality spring water really elevates all food and drink. What do you feel? 100% yes. And that also goes into baking too. The hard water versus soft water is something that is like, yeah, it's not just like washing vegetables. It's not just what you taste. It's the iron, that the minerals in water, makes such a difference in how that water performs, in baking, absolutely. And in brewing beer. Yes, 100%. Daria chimes in with beer. Snanth70 or Snanth70. Just wonder when we're going to have you cooking your favorite food. That's the problem. I wish I could bring my laptop right now without somehow losing the feed. If you saw my kitchen, did we ever have our kitchen in a video? Have we ever shown our kitchen in an OTR video? Potatoes, yes, in the potato video. We did film if you watch our OTR potato video, Boris, who was one of our old directors, used to try and encourage me to do. Boris was constant, because Boris knew me in China when I was a cook. And so, Boris was asking, he's like, when are you going to cook on camera, do a food? And first of all, like, why? Everyone we're filming is, for the most part, if you can hear the dogs in the background, they're playing. Everyone we show is better than me. Why would I put myself, especially if we're on the topic of of Thai food, or something like that, right? Like, who am I compared to the masters that we're actually covering, But if you see our kitchen, the issue was, and the reason why we never did it before, we thought we'd do that, okay, 2-year anniversary, like something like that. We'll do a special where I'll make something. I make some good food. But the issue is our kitchen, the way that it's set up is there's no island in the middle. Everything would be filming from the back. It just is. It was really, me and Boris played with it for a while. We were really struggling to try and figure out how we'd actually shoot it. I would need to kind of take over a restaurant with a big open kitchen, which it's a lot of moving parts. And one day maybe we'll do it. But the problem is at my house, the kitchen, the railings are like the counters are all facing the wall. And so from strictly a filming perspective, you'd just be seeing my back. And like we blocked it out. We tried our best to kind of figure out how could we do a cooking thing for a special video. And it just didn't really work in this kitchen. And can you hear Blanca in the background? Blanca, come, bring me the toy. Come. This is our 10-year-old senior dog who right now is just chasing her tail around the living room. Okay, 3 more questions right now on the list. Let's see. This is from Wiener again. Is American food like Sloppy Joe's, for example, European food? Or has it developed enough to be its own independent cuisine? And where would you draw the independence line? You are just asking some really thought-provoking questions. There have been some interesting questions that make me, we need to, Wiener, if I have a podcast one day, I'm going to bring you on as a guest so we can get deeply into this. Did you ever see the video we made a long time ago on what was the one we did? Was it Khao Yum? Was Khao Yum the one where I did my long rant about the Khao Yum Nasi Karabu? Was that the video that I did my long rant to camera about authenticity in food? I think it might have been the Khao Yum video. I think that was the one about the idea of exactly what you're asking. You know, who owns a dish? Where do we draw the line? Where do we say something belongs to you and not to me? You know, where do we say a dish began? You know, does a dish begin exactly where it is, you know, when it started to look exactly like it does now? You know, like you unwind further and further and further back. And at some point we do have to put in these arbitrary lines. And me a couple of years ago, I think in the Khao Yum video, I want to say that was the one. Give me 1 second. I'm just checking our old. Give me a split second here. Let me actually open that video and see if I'm correct. I think that was the one. It's been a long time. We've been doing this for a while now. Pardon me. You're going to hear the background. Yes. So if you haven't seen the Khao Yum video, and I don't, 14-minute mark, I went on about a 5. I'm going to pick up the dog. Give me 1 second here. Blanca, you're about to get, come. Come. Blanca, come. Oh. Come. You're going to chase your tail around the house. You get to be seen on camera. The Khao Yum video, 14-minute mark, I was struggling with that question, the question about like, where do we draw the line as to who owns a dish, who gets credit for a dish belonging to them and not to somebody else? I went on a 5-minute rant about it in that video. That would be my answer to that question. Cortinia says, favorite street food culture. Are we talking about by country? For me personally, in my own experience, my favorite country for street food. Street food is a complicated, how do we define street food? If we're just talking about carts on the street, if we're just talking about literally movable carts on the street, then that would probably be Vietnam. Vietnam, I think, is probably the country that has mastered, you know, what you'd kind of imagine as street food. Favorite street food culture. Vietnam is incredible. It's incredible. But if we're talking about like roadside restaurants and just being able to get a really good meal anywhere along the street, Turkey, Daria, I think you'd be partial to Istanbul. Yeah.
China.
And China.
Street food in China is the best.
Street food in China is the best. The problem with street food in China is a lot of it's been outlawed.
Yeah.
You know, there's been, but China, you know, all right, you can get down again. Turkey is that's a great one. Okay, War Heat 1990. If you could only pick one dish or restaurant from Bourdain that you think is the absolute best, one dish / restaurant from Bourdain that is the absolute best, what would it be? If I only could have one meal I'm not going to cheat and say nasi padang because it's everything. And as crazy as it sounds, we can actually get good beef rendang in Bangkok at Padang Nusantara, and I can make a good beef rendang at home. So I'm going to just skip that, and I'm going to say the nasi soto, the soto Medan, the coconut soup, the first place that we showed in our Medan video. That's something that to me is just still a mystery. The whole rest of my life, I could devote to trying to make that, and I don't think that I would be able to come up with that same flavor combination. Ahmad says, is MU going to lose again tonight? MU? Manchester United. I was like, Michigan University? Didn't they play yesterday? Manchester United going to lose again tonight. See, I'm American. We like the football that we play with our hands, the real football. Tom says, are you going to bring the mustache back? Yeah. I remember speaking of football, watching an American football game, and one of the commentators asked Joe Buck, who was the lead football broadcaster, why did you grow the mustache? He said, why did you do that? And he says, I got bored of the monotony of my face. And I loved that line. And at some point, the mustache will come back. I like the mustache. Daria, thankfully, is also relatively pro mustache. Is that fair?
Yeah.
It just hits the point where we...
I'm into 80s style.
The 80s style, like the Tom Selleck mustache. It took me until I was about 37 before I could even grow one that looked half decent. It took me a long time before I could actually like grow a proper mustache. And I'm taking advantage of it now that I can do it. Okay. So we are coming down to the wire. If anybody wants to get any more questions in, just do it. Clint and Summer, have you had any embarrassing cooking related injuries? Cooking related injuries that were embarrassing. Two things come to mind, one from cooking and one from bartending as my most embarrassing. The worst injury I ever had was not cooking. It was bartending, which I used to do to make extra money after a kitchen shift when I was back in the States, and at a high volume, busy college bar. And it was one night I just was like going a million miles an hour. It was St. Patrick's Day, I think. And we just had like lines of people. There's two of us bartending, thousands of people cramming into this bar. It was a popular place. We are just going as fast as we can, college bar. So we're just like beers and how fast can we pour 100 vodka sodas and gin and tonics. And I'm scooping ice and I catch the bottom of the lip of the bar counter with my hand as I'm coming up, just catch it like that. And I know it is bad. And I know if I look at it, it's going to be worse. I'm holding my finger up and I can just see all around me the sea of people. And you're just in the zone. You're just going. It's like in a kitchen shift. You're just working. Head down, you're working. You're just, and I can't pause for even a second. And I know it's bad. And I'm holding my hand up and I try to just without looking at it, to wrap a napkin around it. And, but no, I basically I almost cut my finger off. You could see the bone. I cut it so deep, just catching the lip of the bottom of the bar counter. It my finger was basically hanging off by a thread. And you could just see the horror in the faces of the people who were standing around the bar. And I look at my other bartender, it's two of us, and there's this many people, and it's St. Patrick's Day. And I look at the other guy, Chris Dawson, and I say, I'm so sorry, dude, I might need to go to the hospital. I might need to get this taken care of. And he's just looking at me like I'm the worst person in the world. Reshi, thank you so much. Congratulations for 3 years. Thank you. This is so cool of you. Thank you for sending the support to us. Thank you very much. To finish the story real quick. So I and he just gives me this look like, you can't leave me like this. You can't do it. And then he sees my hand and he goes, okay, go do it. And I drive to the emergency room, and I thankfully was able to get stitched up and taped up within about an hour and a half. And I came back and I finished the bar shift because that's in restaurant business. You do your job. The job comes first. You can't let anybody else down. So I got my finger stitched up and went right back to the restaurant, and I finished the bar shift. And Yeah, so that was bad. In the kitchen, I think the worst for me was a dare we used to do in a kitchen that I worked at in Virginia, where first day on the job, you're supposed to put, it was so all these hazing things in the restaurants. It was so dumb. Rubber glove, latex glove, and then another latex glove that's stuffed with ice. And you do layer after layer after layer of glove, ice, glove, ice, glove, ice. And then you put your hand in the deep fryer for as long as you can leave it and take it out. And that was a bad way to get a burned hand. Wiener, as a smoker myself, coffee or beer with a cigarette? For enjoyment, coffee. Again, I'm a month without a cigarette right now. Coffee is better with a cigarette. Beer, it's indispensable. This is my problem. This is why smoking was always so hard to quit for me. I got more enjoyment out of that coffee and a cigarette, but a beer, a pack would disappear. But I'm off of it for now, and hopefully staying off of it because it's time. Artyom says, say you're a billionaire, do you want to do anything else? I love what I do right now. Honestly, like it's such a crazy thing to feel like if I was a billionaire, I would still want to continue to make videos the way that we're doing it now. But I don't want to stop. I'm so lucky to get to do this. I would slow down the pace of production. If I was a billionaire, we wouldn't be trying to do this every 10 days or 2 weeks. We'd probably make like a video a month and be happy with that. We'd probably travel a little bit more comfortably. But no, I honestly, there's nothing else that I want to do. I'm thrilled with this opportunity. I can't thank you all enough for supporting us, for watching our videos, for taking the time to kind of care about what we're doing, for watching this live stream, for sticking around, even though we had our technical, we got kicked offline earlier. I feel incredibly lucky to get to do this. It's such a high to finish a video and to watch it and to be like, we did it. Like, we told that story. We told the story the way that it should have been told. We did justice to this. That's such a cool feeling when we go into something that's meaningful, and then to do it, and to the Maidan video, the Lake Toba video, the one we talked about from Hanoi, so many of the stories that we've told are ones that we go into that are really meaningful to me personally, or are ones that are just such a cool story that we don't want to mess it up. We want to do justice to it. And when it's done, to be able to kind of look at it and say, that is forever. This will outlive us. This is a story that has now been told. It's out there. We did it. We did our best with it. It's a really cool feeling. And I like it. I love the process of it. I like writing, do I want to do anything else? I would travel more. I'd rest a little bit more. I'd get some more comfortable bed sheets, high thread count bed sheets. That is something that you cannot undervalue. I would get a massive wall-to-wall saltwater fish tank. And probably a nice van. But other than that, I'm a simple man. Grow my record collection. I want to thank all of you for being here. Don Dobbs says, were those clove cigarettes in Indonesia? Yes, they were. I started smoking. I was 27. Everyone else starts smoking when they're like 13. I'm the asshole who knew better. I was 27. I started smoking because I was in Indonesia for a few months. And those are the death sticks are so addictive. That's what got me hooked. Came back to China and I was just needed mainlining nicotine. Daria, anything else before I sign? What? We are good. We're caught up. Thank you all so much. We didn't quite make it. We're 5 minutes shy of our all-time record, but that's fine. We're done with questions. I'm done with wine. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. And this is fun. We'll do it again.